Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol is remembered not only for Ebenezer Scrooge's redemption but also for the warmth and resilience embodied by Bob Cratchit. As Scrooge's poorly paid clerk and the head of a struggling but loving family, Bob serves as a moral touchstone in the novella. His role is not merely secondary, he provides the human context against which Scrooge's transformation is measured. Through Cratchit, Dickens explores themes of poverty, familial love, dignity, and social justice. One character story. In A Christmas Carol, Bob Cratchit serves as the moral heart of the story. While Scrooge represents the greed of the wealthy, Bob represents the resilience, humility, and suffering of the working class. Bob Cratchit is Scrooge's overworked and underpaid clerk. He works in a dismal little cell of a counting house, shivering because Scrooge refuses to let him put more coal on the fire. Despite his meager salary of only 15 shillings a week, barely enough to support his wife and 6 children, Bob remains polite and incredibly patient. He represents the deserving poor of Victorian London, people who work hard but are trapped in poverty by systemic cruelty. The core of Bob's story is his home life. Despite their shabby clothes and small house, the Cratchit family is rich in love. During the visit from the Ghost of Christmas Present, we see Bob carrying his youngest son, Tiny Tim, on his shoulders. Tim is frail and uses a crutch, but Bob speaks of him with heartbreaking pride. Even though Scrooge is the cause of his financial hardship, Bob insists on proposing a toast to him during their Christmas dinner, calling Scrooge the founder of the feast. This moment highlights Bob's extraordinary capacity for forgiveness and his desire to keep his home free of bitterness. The emotional climax of Bob's arc occurs in the dark future shown by the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. In this vision, Tiny Tim has died because the family could not afford medical care. We see a broken Bob Cratchit returning from his son's grave, trying to remain strong for his family while grieving. This tragedy is what ultimately breaks Scrooge's defenses and forces him to change. At the end of the novel, Bob's life is transformed. On the day after Christmas, Scrooge playfully pretends to scold Bob for being late, only to surprise him with a significant raise and a promise to help his struggling family. Bob's story ends with hope. His son's life is saved, and he finally receives the dignity and financial security his hard work deserves. 2. Role in the narrative. Narratively, Bob's importance lies in 2 key functions. First, he represents the consequences of Scrooge's miserliness. By underpaying Bob and begrudging him coal to keep warm, Scrooge indirectly endangers Tiny Tim, Bob's frail son, whose health depends on adequate care and nourishment. The Cratchit family's struggles highlight the human cost of selfishness and neglect. Second, Bob's family embodies the warmth and joy of Christmas, even amid poverty. Dickens devotes a whole section to the Cratchits' modest but heartfelt Christmas celebration. Their humble meal, punctuated by laughter, gratitude, and affection, contrasts powerfully with Scrooge's lonely supper. Perhaps Bob's most excellent narrative function is to serve as Scrooge's foil. Where Scrooge is cold, Bob is warm. Where Scrooge is solitary, Bob is surrounded by family. Where Scrooge is greedy, Bob is generous with the little he has. This sharp contrast heightens the drama of Scrooge's transformation. It also underscores the message that joy is not a product of wealth but of human connection and compassion. By the end of the novella, Bob also plays a role in dramatizing Scrooge's transformation. Scrooge's decision to raise Bob's salary and support his family represents the tangible application of his newfound generosity. Bob thus becomes not only a figure of contrast but also a beneficiary of Scrooge's change, embodying the novel's social and moral resolution. 3. Symbolic significance. At the most immediate level, Bob represents the Victorian working class, diligent, respectable, and oppressed by economic hardship. Dickens portrays Bob as industrious and loyal, but despite his hard work, he cannot adequately provide for his family. This reflects the social reality of the Industrial Revolution, where many workers faced long hours, low wages, and precarious living conditions. Bob is not lazy or incompetent. His struggles highlight systemic injustices rather than personal failings. Bob also symbolizes the strength of family. His devotion to his wife and children, his pride in Tiny Tim's courage, and his joy in their togetherness reveal the values Dickens championed: love, unity, and faith in the home as a moral center. For Dickens, the Cratchit household represents the ideal of familial affection that sustains individuals against external hardships. Bob embodies Christian virtues of humility, patience, and forgiveness. He does not complain about Scrooge's treatment, nor does he respond with resentment. Instead, he maintains a generous spirit, even blessing Scrooge in a Christmas toast before Scrooge has changed. This saintly endurance elevates Bob as a moral exemplar, showing that dignity and goodness can shine even in poverty. Bob's optimism in the face of adversity may be read as resilience but also as necessity. To despair would be to surrender. His role as a father requires him to maintain cheerfulness, even when burdened by worry over Tiny Tim. It is the emotional labor of poverty for a poor father to preserve hope and joy for one's family despite overwhelming hardship. Through Bob's deep love for Tiny Tim, he symbolizes parental devotion and hope. Tiny Tim's precarious health becomes the emotional crux of the story, and Bob's grief at the prospect of losing him emphasizes the stakes of Scrooge's moral failings. Bob's role as Tiny Tim's voice and caretaker amplifies the novella's plea for compassion toward the vulnerable. For conclusion, Bob Cratchit may seem at first glance to be a minor character in A Christmas Carol, but his role is central to the novel's moral and emotional resonance. As Scrooge's clerk, he represents the working poor of Victorian England. As a father and husband, he symbolizes familial love and domestic virtue, and as a man of humility and patience, he exemplifies Christian morality. His struggles highlight the injustices of poverty, while his warmth and resilience embody the values Dickens sought to promote. Bob's importance lies not only in his contrast to Scrooge but also in his embodiment of the novel's vision of social harmony. The Cratchit household serves as a moral mirror in which Scrooge, and by extension, the reader, must recognize the need for compassion and generosity. By elevating Bob Cratchit as a figure of dignity and virtue, Dickens highlights the humanity of low-income individuals and emphasizes the importance of social responsibility.